Welcome back, I'm Tedward. Welcome back to New Jersey, where I'm photographing some cars for McGovern Auto Group here in Little Silver. And welcome to my loaner, a bright yellow GT4. Let's get her started. Oh yes, 414 horsepower from this 4-liter NA flat 6. We'll let it warm up a little bit and then we'll let her shine. But look at this, we've got all the yellow accents inside, some Alcantara to make it feel a bit more premium, and she is not a subtle ride on the outside. You've got the stripes with the racing checkered flag on the side and the giant Porsche logo on the spoiler. I do love the way these start up. They're super rowdy, and the 982 generation of these, which this is, everyone loves to say, oh, it's a 718 or a 981. No, this is a 982. The 981 was the 3.8 liter NA car. The 4 liters are the 982. 718 is part of the name. It's a 718 Boxster 718 Cayman, so that is not the chassis code, although a lot of people like to correct me and incorrectly correct me. This has the comfy seats. It's got suede inserts, which are really nice. I love the way these move too, because when you go to 992 and the newer generation cars, they've got this strap, and sometimes they don't, the little pull doesn't work great. This was a good mechanism. I want that back. Storage space is plentiful, and the best part about these cars, especially these mid-engine cars, is you get rear and front storage, and the front storage, like any 911, super cavernous. I had a huge bag in here last night when I was coming back from the airport, and you just don't have to think about it. And the purpose of today's drive is not only to go on a little morning commute and get to my destination, gotta get some coffee first at Rook, but I also just want to show how these are kind of useful cars. I mean, sure, it's a GT car, it's a motorsports car, but you can use them. They're not track only. This is something that you should own and drive. And I, as a college student back in the day, I had a 350Z, and I used it. It was my daily driver. That's what I drove every day through the winter, through whatever. My M3, sure, slightly less, hardcore in terms of being a sports car, or is practicality wise. It was more usable. It was it's a coupe. But what I think people should start doing, and I am a little bit guilty of this because I keep buying cars, but let's just buy a car and use it. Why not have this as your full-blown daily driver? What's wrong with that? Huh? I mean, this is something that could get you to work and back. It's okay on fuel. It's better than my GX. And it's a nice manual transmission. It's a really good thing. All right, so we were gonna go out that way, but we can't because the ceiling collapsed. I put up a little story, and you could see that was just pouring rain through a light fixture. And then, yeah, that didn't work out. That did not work out. All right, let's get away from that Ford Explorer that's like hunting me down. I don't really love that. I've not done anything. It goes to show how paranoid I get. What a lovely transmission too. It's not persnickety when it's a little cold. I've got this great steering wheel. It's the perfect size, and it's Alcantara. It feels nice in the hand. Although I may need to adjust this a little bit. Man, okay, this has the steel brakes, and the steel brakes, they're good, they work, but you gotta give like a big bootful of pressure. They're not grabby. Bay, traffic. Well, okay, while we're waiting in traffic, I think it should be noted, it has auto start stop, which is off, which is lovely, it's warming up. You've got Apple CarPlay. It's a spacious, roomy interior. I don't feel cramped. It doesn't feel like a tiny little sports car that you're compromising anything with. It's just a nice car to be in. And you've got pretty decent visibility. So, when it comes to people saying like, oh, I need to have like, this and that and blah, 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 blah for whatever creature comforts, like you can get away with a lot in a lot of modern sports cars, because modern sports cars aren't like it's not a tiny little Triumph, This is a real thing. There's a lot of police presence here today. I don't know what's going on at this hotel. Interesting. And we're stopped. Why are there like 50 cops in this place? Maybe there's like a conference. 4-liter super potent, but make no mistake, this is not a GT engine. This is actually a 3-liter block that would have been used in the twin-turbo Carrera variants. And then they remove the turbos, punch it out to 4 liters, and you end up with this. Ooh, we have a little auto blip, which it does a really good job. That's a nice auto blip, this one. And they punch it out to 4 liters, and then you get this. There are companies like Demand that will then go out and punch it out even further and make them faster and a little crazier. I don't necessarily think the car needs more power. I think the gearing is what typically limits these cars. And I'll show you. That's a long ride in first and second gear. I think second gear goes up to a little over 80. That's wide open. So you do need to keep the revs up despite this being a relatively torque-happy engine. And that's all just down to gearing. So that's where certain companies will re-gear these cars, and it goes a long way in making them a little more aggressive and motorsport friendly. But as far as daily driving, the gearing works really well. And so it's funny, and any reason you'd complain about the gearing is because you're wanting to shift more between second and third, maybe fourth. But when you're driving to work, holding your coffee, trying not to spill it, it's actually a pretty good place to be, because you can ride out second for a long time. That's not bad. So it sounds good, but it doesn't sound as good as the 3.8, man. Oh, this is one of those tricky things with modern cars, is that when you go back in time a little bit, a lot of times the older cars sound better, and that 3.8 liter that used to be in the 991.1 Carreras and the 981 GT4s, good Lord, it's so sonorous. They're such good sounding engines. They do not perform quite as well, unfortunately. So you do make a little sacrifice. But make no mistake, if you were to, for a budget reason, go with the older car, you are going to reap the benefits of the emotional aspect of those cars, because they sound great. This one has like a sport mode for its dampers, but you know, gotta say, we're driving around some of these roads, it's not so bad. This is fine. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, you can't drive a sports car because they're stiff and it's gonna chatter your teeth out. It's like, nah, dude, it ain't a race car. It is a street car that you can bring to track days. That's what this is. And if you want to find out the teeth chattering situation, yeah, you go get an RS, which is a heck of a lot more expensive than this. And those RS models actually will chatter your teeth out. They are quite brutal on the street. I do not recommend GT4 RSs for a daily driver or street car, despite the fact that you get a GT3 engine, and that's when all the problems I'm describing are solved with the 4-liter here, because that 4-liter, oh boy, that's a different story. I spy a 718 Boxer in the same color. We have a friend. This clutch is so easy. This is a great car to learn on, honestly. I think if you, I mean, I know it's like a bougie thing, but if you were learning how to drive a manual, there are some cars that are just easier and better to learn on than others. And I do think that if you were trying to teach someone how to drive a stick, they would understand what's going on really well with this, because it's not a heavy clutch, so it's not intimidating on your left foot, but it's tactile enough without being binary on the engagement point, meaning it doesn't just grab and go. There is a nice little region of slip, but you can feel it. And sometimes when you get in like cheaper cars, you know, if I taught you on like a Hyundai Accent or something, those cars, they can feel really vague. And I honestly think sometimes those cars are the harder ones for people to learn on, because they can't feel what's going on. Whereas in this car, you can feel what's going on, and it's also not hard, which again makes it pretty darn good for the daily duties. You can hear a bunch of stuff getting kicked up by our sticky rubber. But you know, you put a Michelin PS4S on it or something like that, and that'll do the job just fine. And if you were to do some track days, you could either leave that on, which I don't necessarily recommend. The tread on the side of those tires does not hold up great when we're talking about track days and that kind of actual heat cycling. But you could always have an extra set of wheels that you throw like a 200 treadwear tire on, or a Cup 2, you know, something like that. That'll do the job. Maybe a Bridgestone or E71 RS. You cannot beat NA. I don't care how much torque your turbos have. Instant throttle response. Not waiting for anything to occur other than my brain to decide to go. This is the key to success and happiness in the motorsports world. And this is why GT3s are so damn expensive and why people are clamoring for them. It's like, yeah, I love a launch control in an Audi RS7, something with a couple big juicy turbos spooling up. Let's rock and roll. That's fun. I'm about it. It's cool. But when it comes to my meat and potatoes, track driving style, I just want to feel things. And I gotta say, this is a detractor for my Honda. My Civic Type R has a turbo. It don't do that. It's a fast car. I'm not gonna go over these and hydro-lock this engine. But man, I find it just easier to drive these cars when everything's responsive and occurs when you expect it to. So good. Okay, please don't cut this corner and destroy my beautiful yellow Porsche. It's a lovely thing. And that's what I mean. I think it's the right amount of power. It's the right amount of speed. If this was like 500 or 600 horsepower, it would be difficult to actually ring out. And it wouldn't make for a great morning commuter because you just feel completely anemic. You'd feel so much restraint to not do that. Whereas with this, you can actually just put your foot down and enjoy it. All right, let's pull in to Mercedes-Benz Little Silver. I'm gonna get my marching orders and then we're gonna run up the street, grab a Rook coffee. And I don't think anyone's gonna question who just showed up because my goodness, are we yellow? Holy cow, this thing is so yellow. It's alarmingly yellow. That's an Ineos Grenadier. Interesting. Decent reverse camera. That's the thing. This car's like kind of no frills in a lot of ways. Like it's a car. It has some modern amenities, and it's not trying to impress you with much more than being a fun motorsports toy. So, rowdy. All right, let's go get this coffee. Never gets old. So this is Rook Coffee, which we've been going to every time I come down here anyway, but this location is really cool because it's at a train station. So the coffee shop is actually in the train station, like where you'd get your tickets and stuff, which is really neat. I think it's a sweet little place. Thank you, what a legend. Almost always do that the wrong way the first time. I'm getting used to it. The way to remember how to disengage this is think of it like an old GM vehicle where you've got the foot brake and then you pull it to pop that foot brake up. That's how I have to reframe my mind. All right, let's get coffee. Coffee acquired, and here, this is the trick. It's funny, a lot of people hate these, but I don't mind them. These are okay. They do the job. And you just snug it up. And there you go. I mean, it's not the best thing. You don't want to go like racing around a track. You're going to still have to be a little careful when you use it, but isn't that the same for every cup holder? Now, if you're a little nervous that this is hanging over like your controls, you can always just do this reaching game. Throw it over here, and then if you damage anything, the worst you're going to do is injure that little button there. So another little trick if you just want to have it somewhere else a little bit out of the way. Great, yeah, that's first little morning commute in the GT4. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.